Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about some of my ideas. Let me just get screen share up. So here is Mandela Effect, Jonathan Bardsley again, and for anyone that doesn't, that hasn't checked him out, I put the link in the description. He has some very interesting ideas about basically reality storage, being in the magnetosphere of Earth, and that's where the change would be affected. So I wanted to mention him and that theory because that's that opened my mind in the first place to a lot of different ideas about what might be going on. And I was talking about the other day with Meta on his channel about cymatic waves and my thoughts right there about memory and cymatics, because okay, well, let me see, where should I even start? I think that on this particular plane of existence, when you wake up, and this might not happen for everyone, but for a lot of people, like, you wake up and you're like confused for a minute, and then the information kind of rushes in. I think that there may be information, not just, in your mind, but in your perhaps aura field or surrounding as well. I guess what I'm getting at is I think that this place that we're in, let's call it the awake world, you personally might be instructed by information that's coming into you externally. And the reason that I'm saying that is, like, a lot of people, if they have like an NDE or like an out-of-body experience and they go into the astrals, they go into a different place, a lot of the information that's here that convinces you so much about the ego, and I don't mean that in like just like, oh, you're egotistical or something. I mean, when I say ego, I mean like literally the character that you're playing here. Who are you? What archetypes are involved with that? What is it that you are comprised of? A lot of that falls away if you go to, like, if you have an out-of-body experience and you go to the other side of the veil, so to speak. And the further you go, the more that goes away. You've heard of like people that, I'm sorry I'm saying so much, but when I do these like face videos, I get nervous and I start saying, and I feel like super comfortable actually when I turn my face off. So maybe I'll do that so I can focus on what I'm saying. When people have an ego death, like spiritual masters and things like that, or very deep meditative people, monks, things like that, they're getting to a state of not taking that information in. They're trying to get into that nothingness state. And I've been studying this for a little while to see, what is it exactly that they're getting to that is ideal for them, that is that state of peace and everything like that. And it's getting to that white spark, that initial moment of consciousness where there's no info on, who you are and what your troubles are and what your situation is, and, the kind of things that we think about on the regular because we think we are this person or that person and that we have this or that going on. So they're trying to attain a state of consciousness that is prior to that you all have when you very first get here, because it's very difficult to stress out a brand new consciousness with a ton of things, as in like the things that would stress out a baby is just not having enough food or water or someone like physically hurting it. But babies don't sit there and stress about the economy or stress about other people or, those constructs, the ideas of things have to be introduced. And I know that they are introduced through other people, but I think that it's not just that alone. For example, I know a primary school teacher, and she talked about teaching kids to read. And she personally said to me that it was very strange. It's like magic. Those were her words, where at first the kids are struggling so much to read, and they're trying to sound out words and they're like guessing words wrong and everything, and then just something clicks and all of a sudden they can take in that. They start with language recognition, like visual language recognition, and it works unless there is, dyslexia or something else in place. Most kids will, she said, by the end of her school year, when they're still pretty small, be able to read the simple books, the ones that they're working on in class. So when you look at kind of the foundation, not just the adaptation of the kind of info that we push on people that are new here, that come down here to the Earth place or the awake place or whatever you want to refer to this place as. But I think there's more to that process. I don't think it's just, it's a new mind and it's so elastic, fantastic that it can just do anything. Yes, new minds are incredible, and the rate at which they can create new synapsi and pick up new things is amazing. But again, I think that there is basically an external that is constantly giving you information that is keeping you in the game, so to speak. And I think, like, let me put it this way, if one was to leave this place and be free of all that and then to come back in here, it's like all that information floods in again, tell you who you are and what, all the character info that you need. So getting on to my next point here is that I'm thinking right now that the ego, the storage of the ego, is in cymatic, as in it's in sound. I think that there's actually a certain bandwidth where not just memory is stored, but basically instruction, almost like programming or computer programming. And as you can see here, Archie has been working away on the cymatic experiments where you can see the language within light and sound put together. And we know, of course, that different sound waves have different effects on water. And also, the love-hate experiment with the rice and things like that. So we know that there's an effect with these things, but I don't think we fully understand the potential storage power of water in cymatics. Because if you could picture these little droplets that I have on screen as a brain, and so your brain is basically the drop of water, and the cymatic wave is creating the pattern within it. So they're like, this is the same drop of water, but he's just hitting it with different frequencies, and it's coming up with all these different sounds, everything like that. What if you could have a brain that you've cloned, you've grown it to an adult size, but it's a brain. It's not in a body out there in the world getting all stressed, all this kind of stuff. But you were able to hit it with a certain frequency bandwidth. And, I know there obviously are more complex parameters than just hitting it with a certain rate of hertz. But if you could narrow down exactly what the specs are for an individual's memory, would you be able to just beam that in, so to speak? And then that brain thinks that it is that person. Now, I know, like, you wouldn't be able to immediately create the synapsi and everything, but you would probably have to be shooting the very, very particular sound wave that matched the person you were trying to bring back, probably while you were growing the brain, so that you could copy the synapsi that was the patterns, basically. Because the synapsi is just, it's not just your learned experience, but also like what you think about it and how you feel about it. Like, there's a lot of different elements to that. But it's the things that are coming towards you, you perceive them. So it comes towards you in ripples of light. You have a response to this. whatever that may be. And the response is rippling outwards from the center, from the pineal gland, and it's creating a pattern in the mind surrounding it. So this, in my opinion, is something that, oh, I want you to make the picture bigger. I clicked the wrong thing. I think that you could replicate it if you could narrow down, like I said, what precisely is it that the individual is emitting. If you had enough comprehensive ratings, now I'm not sure if it would be, very limited, which it probably would be. I'm just thinking right now what technologies you would need to use, and even then, it would just be like capturing a snapshot in time, or perhaps a video of a certain length. Like if you were able to measure all of the different frequencies coming out of each energy port in the same one person, and then also going pretty far out in their aura field, because the further out you go, there's still reverberations, there's still cymatics, like from childhood. You go all the way out, you get back to the neutral zone, to when they were not even a baby yet, but just like a very first spark of consciousness. And as you go in, obviously, towards the body, then you're getting towards the cymatic residue of what the person's been going through more recently and more recently, until you get to the actual density of the body they're sitting in. I think you could replicate that. Now, I'm not saying that that is amazingly necessary. Like on a spiritual level, it's not, because you're just replicating something that is, earthly. So it's not, I don't think it would be amazing spiritual breakthrough, which is usually where my focuses are. But I'm looking in this direction because I'm trying to figure out memory, and how memory could be altered or played with. Or if there's already a sea of memory going on that we just got dropped into, but we're not accepting the cymatic residue of this place because we're not in tune with it, because we're not from here. I think because we're out of tune with it, that's why we're like, no, I don't have those memories. That doesn't match what I know. I'm from somewhere else. But I mean, if somebody had the specs, and perhaps there's some secret, study somewhere where they're working on this, I have no idea. I'm just purely pulling that out of the sky. But if there is, and you could actually bring back someone in their earthly manner, even just to take down the information by a computer, like I'm not sure that you could actually literally clone a body and beam them in there and get that to work. I'm saying that maybe you could get a snapshot of them. It's crossing into weird EVP territory here, but maybe their character still exists. Just like when you wake up from sleep and you don't know who you are, and your character rushes back in to you, the memories come in. Or after an NDE, when this place rushes back into you, the same thing. Although I will say, from watching the show Altered Carbon, I thought it was super interesting how they filmed re-sleeving, which in this show, like, people's consciousness is in a little chip that like goes into the back of their necks, and bodies are just called sleeves because you can put the chip, you can move into different bodies. So the little chip thing is called a stack. But anyway, with that process, when they would take a stack out of an old sleeve or body and put it into a new one, there would be an adjustment period where you feel really weird and not good. And the way they filmed it was exactly the way I felt after my surgery in 2010 that went haywire. Like, I felt I felt like I was re-sleeving for 3 days, and then everything just went back to normal. So I don't know if that was some serious, like, errors going on in the cymatics. I'm not sure exactly what happens when you're not in tune with your surroundings, because you weren't even there until that moment. If you, like, moving or time traveling or whatever from one place to another. But I do think that this is key. To summarize what I'm going on and on and on and on, and on about, I think that the memory of the character memory in this game is in sound, because I think that the sound waves going through the brain, which is mostly water, is creating the patterns of what you think you are. The experts keep telling us, when you're depressed or anxious or whatever, you're going around in a loop. You're going around in a loop. That's like, yes, you are. There's a strange resonance rippling through the sea that is you, rippling through the conscious sea, the water of the mind. And one could even, go as far as the aura field too and say, well, that's a different kind of conscious sea as well, which it totally is. So there's a lot to ponder right here. But yeah, I honestly think that this is part of understanding what has happened with us and to us, and what, not why we are here, but why we didn't just immediately have, the new memories forced into our heads and just never even know that something was up. I think it's because we're not in tune with this place. And I honestly think that if you could get the precise readings of somebody, then you could recreate them in a limited fashion to get information. Say you could recreate Nikola Tesla for a short amount of time. Say his character is still floating around here somewhere. I'm not sure if the higher aspect of him would return, but whatever it is that his earthly self knew, if you could dial in exactly what Nikola Tesla was, which was probably a whole bunch of 369, you could get a copy of what was going on. Now, also, this is something that people don't even talk about. Maybe it doesn't even exist here. But you could dial in what era he lived in too, to try and get it really right. Because every single decade has its own frequency. Every decade is tuned differently. Especially in the Sagittarius arm. Like when I was looking at a piece of footage, I could tell what decade it was from. And not just because of the hair or the outfits or whatever. It's because every single one sounded different in that kind of above where you hear the highest pitches and before you get back into the kind of ear-ringing sounds that come out of the pineal gland. There's this kind of invisible sound arc, like at the very, very top of your ears. And most people have access to this when they're children, and then sometimes that doesn't stay because you can go, you can lose quite a bit of consciousness going from child to adult. Not everybody fully makes it. Some people get kind of half zombified and crusted in fluoride and every other kind of thing going on. But anyways, if you've kept that ability, you'll be able to hear what time something was from. So I know the time in Cymatics is connected. Everything here is kind of weird because it has an underlying frequency that's all the same tuning. So here in Orion, when you look at a picture or something like that, not only is the picture, say an old picture, from the Old West, not only are some of those Old West pictures far too digital and advanced and look far too crisp and clear for the time that they're from, but also there's an underlying frequency that says that it's right now, that it's not then, but it was now. There's a partial frequency of the decade it's supposedly from, but it honestly feels like it was manufactured right now, and there's a certain frequency to right now as well. And I know that if I can pick up on that, then if we had very sensitive equipment that was particularly designed for this, it could pick up on that and dial that in and lock that down a lot, in a very efficient manner, in my opinion. So yeah, I would say that this tech, probably the ancients understood it, it's probably been used before, it's probably been widely understood. Like, oh, you want a snapshot of consciousness? There you go. That's kind of what it looks like. You could overlay that with a picture of a brain. Oh, still give me YouTube, but and I'll go for diagram because I know I've gotten complaints before by people who are saying I wasn't expecting a picture of a real brain and it freaked me out. Let's see if we can get any of these pictures. If you can get a picture of a brain from the top, let me see, maybe this one's, no, none of them are coming up very big. But seriously, if you get a picture of a brain from the, cross section from the top, and you overlay it with a cymatic wave, you can see not just the physical equipment, the spiritual architecture, as I call it, which is becoming very refined, but you can also see the waves of consciousness moving through it, which would look more like this, or like this, or, just depending on what mood the person is in, it could be switching to all kinds of different things. And the person that's, in a peaceful state of mind, you're going to have a nice peaceful pattern, and the tissue is going to respond by being far healthier. And someone that's in a terrible state of mind all the time, they're going to have a discordant pattern that looks like hell. And the brain is going to respond to that and be kind of not functioning optimally, because under stress, it can't, when it's too stressed out, you can't function fully. It kind of shuts down parts of itself to protect itself, because this is powerful stuff right here. Just like how you can damage your body with stress by your consciousness tearing through it in an unfriendly pattern, because there's nothing physical happening to you with stress. You are tearing through your own flesh as a consciousness in a sharp discordant pattern, and you're causing damage to your own cells and to your own body. And after, as time goes on, you are going to wear your body out. You're going to have a heart attack, or you're going to give yourself cancer. The body cannot fight all the infections and all the processes it has to do every day and deal with your endless stress. Like, eventually it will have visible damage, or it'll just give up altogether. So that's why the first good place to start with peace, or the consciousness of peace, is definitely yourself. Make yourself flourish first, and then put forward this kind of signal, or any other kind of positive signal you can find. It doesn't have to be, obviously, a visual representation of your own consciousness is a bit meta, but once you can go further than your own brain, then you can go further than your own body, then you can go further than your own aura field, then you can go as far as you want to. And that can literally affect change. Going from cymatics to quantum physics right now, it'll literally affect change in your surroundings if your signal is powerful enough. And your signal is powerful enough because you're a rogue signal. You are not under the same programming that the other people are here, because you're not in tune with this place, because you're not even supposed to be here. And that's how you're getting away with everything. That's how you are. And when I say that, I mean that you are waking up at a level that's not supposed to happen, because you're becoming a lucid dreamer in a game where you're supposed to be very, very unconscious. And I think you're getting away with that, and that there's no clapback or repercussion for you, like no major messing with your current memories or anything like that, because you are out of tune with a system that was supposed to be foolproof. I think there's no clapback designed in, because it's supposed to be when the higher consciousness wakes up in the body, immediately the cymatic instruction, or the cymatic residue of what you're supposed to be here, floods in to your body, into your brain, into your conscious and subconscious, and you start believing and thinking that, oh, you are who you are, unless you're hit with amnesia or something goes wrong. And in cases where something goes wrong, let's take the wrong thing again, you can have oh, I forgot the E at the end of that, lols. If there's an injury or if something goes haywire when you're regaining consciousness again, you can actually get foreign accent syndrome, where you sound like you're from a different country, or you can even literally, there have been cases of people waking up speaking a different language that they didn't speak before. There was definitely a lady that woke up speaking Spanish. It's probably on YouTube or something like that. But yeah, you can literally search that. There are people that wake up with foreign accents or with different languages. And I honestly think that that is a error of the cymatic residue coming back into you. Because if you can't speak Spanish, then no bang on the head is going to suddenly be like, oh, speak Spanish. Unless, of course, maybe you were Spanish in a past life and that cymatic residue is still within you. But I mean, that signal would be it would be a weak echo to suddenly become central. You know what I mean? That could happen. That's not outside of the realm of possibility. But I think that it's also quite possible that for whatever reason, the usual port that would connect that says you speak English is not working, so it just goes to Spanish or German, and then you wake up in hospital speaking Spanish or German, and they go, oh, it was foreign accent syndrome, but blah, blah, blah. They're not looking at what could possibly be going on. It's pre-existing, it's pre-written. And that it's the character you're playing here is not, while it is you and it's written for you, it's also not you. Like the higher aspect of you is not the character that's written here. The character that's written here will have, quite a few, especially this language that's existing within our sound and then unlocked with light, rather, is going to have character flaws and all kinds of things going on. Let me see. There we go. I think that another thing that goes into, because it's very complex trying to figure out all the different things that go into what somebody's unique signal would be. It would certainly be the average hertz of where their consciousness would resonate. It would be the average of what their energy ports or chakras would be resonating at. It would be the average that their aura is. And then also I think that there's instructional information. Let's see if we can find this. I found these really interesting here. These star charts, these naval charts. So say you're born on whatever type of a day, and just for the sake of argument, you're sitting here in the middle, you're born at that point in time. And this is a chart of the position of the stars when you were born. If you could imagine that there's a type of light or radiation coming from the different planets and stars, and that they all cross section at a certain point. I know they don't all cross over each other, but I'm just saying that radiation is present at that particular point, at that particular time, that your cymatic instructional floods in to your avatar. Then these could also be part of the character programming. So these, this is a good way to scramble and randomize the different layers of radiation, the different layers of frequency that would go into the holographic projection of the individual, basically the avatar of the individual in the center of this. So when you have a hologram, generally it projects from more than one source of light. See, we have one here that's projecting from one source of light, but generally you have maybe two beams of light that are intersecting, sometimes more. It depends on the exact setup of the hologram and how three-dimensional you want it to be. I've even seen some where there's like four, there's light coming from like four different directions, and that's creating the illusion, the projection that you're seeing in front of you, and it's making it 3D. So what I'm saying is that instead of lamps being around the projection of this person, I think that it's not just the instructional cymatic residue that's around them, but I think that this also is the character randomizer. If you think of the game The Sims and you hit the button randomize and it puts a sim together for you, I think that's what this is in terms of where we are and the sim that we're dealing with. It's just like, oh, these different radiation bandwidths are different points in different places. And you might say, well, that's all the same kind of energy. Why would it make a difference where it's hitting? And it's like, well, these different, star signs, I suppose, these different astrological symbols here have an effect on the different starports. Like Taurus is the throat, and let me see if I can pull up a visual of that. What would it be? Like star sign body parts. I hope something weird doesn't come up with that. Let's see now. Here we go. Here's a pretty good one. It's too small though, so you can't read it. So let me save it and make it big. Okay. So this is how the randomizer would work in just my theory that I'm talking about here. Is, okay, so the stars are at these different points, and these different points are connecting to these different energy ports in the avatar. So you could have like these in different positions, if you will. You could have like Venus in Cancer, you could have like Chiron in Leo, you could have the sun in Gemini, you could have, you could have a wild combination of things, and that would actually affect where the radiation is, or should we say like cymatic residue, because maybe let's consider those layers of energy to just be, frequency-based information of their own, rather than looking at them as solid planets or as heavenly lights or, as whatever it is that we're talking about here. But just having that different layer of frequency hit a different starport will give you a different combination with every single avatar. And that's all you need to have an interesting game, is to be able to hit the randomize button over and over and over and over. And I think this is how that is done. So let me see now, have I covered all the points? I sure hope I have, because I think the video is getting very long. Let me look now and see what else. Yep, I think that you could, if you could accurately discover and then copy all the cymatic information on somebody or something, then you could copy it. I think that could work for plants as well. Like, I think that this is a manner of consciousness cloning. As we know about genetic cloning, you can make you can make a genetic clone of something, but it's going to be an identical twin. It's not going to be the same person, or the same consciousness of that same plant from that same time. If you want that, you need to use this. Because this is where memory is stored, like people's memories. And then when it comes to Earth and geological changes, I honestly think that it's a mixture of this and what Jonathan Bardsley was saying, because the Earth has its own, not just magnetosphere, but its own energy, the Schumann resonance. Like, it's got its own cymatic information going on. So I'm not sure what one would have to do to copy the entire Earth, but it is possible that there is a civilization out there somewhere, somehow, some way, that is at that level, that they would be able to freaking point a camera at us and take a complete and perfect, beyond three-dimensional, be like a five-dimensional image of all of the cymatic information of Earth, going all the way back to what it is right now. If you had tech that advanced, then yes, you could copy the memory of Earth, and you could get in there with the, you could get in there and splice the language, and you could change whatever you wanted to. If you understood this, if you were like that advanced, if you had that tech in your hands, then yeah, maybe it is possible to hack a memory, a copy of Earth. I don't know if they could hack actual physical Earth, because I don't know how difficult it would be. Like I said with the first example with the brain, I think it would be a lot easier to grow the brain with the signal going through it the whole time, so that it's growing around the scaffolding of the memory of synapsi that the original person held. So I think if you were going to make another Earth in a physical way, you would design it around the scaffolding of the cymatic information of what the original Earth was, whatever original planet was that you took a snapshot of. But I think if you're making a hologram like what you have here, they could have taken a snapshot of Earth and just kept it in the virtual, so that hacking it would be so much easier, because you're not talking about, cutting through different cymatic parts of time, and a much more complicated process. You could just keep it on a simulation level, and that's why everything feels like it's now. That's why the ancient photographs of old America and everything like that look like they're from right now, because you're keeping everything within that bandwidth so that it's easier to hack into and change. But whatever the fuck happened, they have a bunch of people here that are not in tune with this, and being in the now is actually incredibly empowering for us, because it breaks us free of linear time. So then we can actually get to a point where we can understand all this, because we are, like I said in my last video, the spirit is awake and banging and kicking around, and our bodies are also here. So we're in a much more powerful, privileged position than perhaps anyone that has ever played this game. And we can make something completely new. And that probably wasn't the intention of whoever did this or whatever the fuck is going on, but this has happened, and we can completely take advantage of this situation, because we don't need to write programs to understand what's going on. We're from the original Earth. We know all about it in an understanding that goes far beyond language. We have the real blueprints of the real place in us, in our cymatic residue information, in our aura fields. So basically, we are on par with whoever went wild and did all this in understanding, because we can see where we are, because we're not in tune with the copy. We're from the original. The copy is, like I said, altered. These are, again, are just my theories. I know I'm saying this, blah, blah, blah is fact, blah, blah, blah is fact, but I'm building the scaffolding of my theory so that you can have a look at it and tell me what you think. It's not proven. None of this is proven in this video. This is just completely me thinking, observing, talking, thinking out loud, just ideas. But I'm putting them forward in a very strong, confident kind of way, because I think that they make sense. At least they make sense to me. This has, like, the takeaway I'm having from this is, like I said, we can dream like never before, because we are not of this place, but we can incorporate the spirit in the physical, and we can literally dream in the physical and make something entirely new out of this situation. we are the ones that can make this happen because we have the understanding of it and we're free from the programming and from linear time. And even apparently from dying. So whatever the fuck is going on with that. So to be honest, I'm taking away, even though this has gone into a lot of different wild, angles and possibilities here. I'm taking this all as a positive. It's broken us free of all of the really restricting parts of density while still leaving us with a body. And I honestly think that whole thing is accidental. The ME people, I think that our experience and us even existing the way that we do is completely accidental. It was a slip up in whatever happened originally. But anyway, this has gone on 40 minutes, so I'm going to chill. I'm going to think about this more and hopefully get another video out early next week, and we'll see what the story is. So thank you for listening to me, and I will talk to you very, very soon.